like to welcome you to the May 21st Town Board meeting. Please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
John Bazia, first ward.
Bill Carlos, second ward.
Michael Sapone, fourth ward.
Stefan Krakauer, fifth ward.
Ann Shershin, sixth ward.
Todd Tancredi, Supervisor.
Felicia Salvatore, Town Clerk.
Jim Nelson, attorney for the town.
All right, we have one public hearing on the agenda tonight, so I'd like to make a motion to open public hearing number 1, amend Chapter 154, Article 4, issuance, denial, and revocation of plumber's license.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone here to speak to this public hearing? Yes, sir. Come on up. We just need you to sit down and speak in the microphone. Sure. So we can get you on the recorder.
My name is Mike Ryan. I'm a member of the town plumbing board. I read your what you want to do here in an email you sent out, and I don't believe you really need to do this.
Okay.
Okay. I've done quite a bit of rate job work. Okay, which this public library is, and I've never filed a permit or got a local inspector to look at the job. It's always done by the engineer hired by the owner. Every job I've ever done. So I think we're premature in changing the code here to allow other plumbers to come into town where we already have over 100 plumbers in the area.
Okay. It's good information. Wasn't aware of what you're speaking of, but
This is something that
So you're saying the engineers normally
the engineer is
pull
responsible
the permit?
to the owner to make sure he gets everything he pays for and it's done properly. Okay, I've never called a local inspector to check a rate job.
I thought you needed don't you need to have a license though and take the
you do
test and all
not.
that?
You don't need a licensed plumber to pull the plumbing permit in this case?
I've never pulled a plumbing permit to do rate work.
By rate work, what do you mean, sir? I
It's
don't.
prevailing,
Just shut the blind lumen?
Yeah.
Thanks.
it's prevailing wage work that's done with public funds.
Okay, so it's a public,
It's all public work. It's no private work is involved in this. Any private work has to have a licensed plumber and a permit.
if the state, Jim, if the state or the county is doing a job, are they required to pull permits?
No, I think they.
Depends,
I think that may be.
they are.
They are or they aren't?
Depends on who they are. There's,
Yeah.
Like when the county built the department, what is it, the Public Works building?
911?
No, the building right over on 44, did they pull permits for that?
I don't know.
I thought they didn't go through a planning.
I didn't think
process.
I didn't think the state or the county had to. I thought they had their own, somehow
There
their
are a
own
lot of state
authority.
agencies which I think Office of Children and Family Services and entities like that who have people who conduct their inspections. Zoning, there's the Monroe County, doctrine where figure the hierarchy and whether a more involved level of government has to report to another, but that hasn't been done here, and
When Dutchess built the dorms, did they
I don't
pull
know.
permits?
I don't know.
I think there are,
They went through the state board.
okay, yeah, because I think there are a lot of situations where higher levels of government are effectively exempt from
Yeah.
dealing with the town, but I don't believe that the library is one of those, correct?
No, they're not.
Nobody has made that finding.
And fire districts have always pulled permits.
Yeah, fire and library, I think, are the two that need to.
So I think you're correct to an extent, I think.
Yeah, the state, I don't think, is going to come here. I think that perhaps school districts may have separate rules, although I don't know.
Well, I think the reason that we're looking at this tonight is to let this project move forward so we don't hinder the residents that are already paying the bill for the library and double whack them with a delay of additional costs. I mean, if this gets passed tonight and the project goes through, we could always revisit this or rescind this if necessary, if we don't need it, and I would like to look into that. But I think
Yeah,
if
I
at
don't
this
think you
point in
need it.
time.
I think you could just let whoever's doing the work.
The engineer pulled a permit, basically.
Yes, and,
All right.
and he'll
If
take
that's
care
the
of the
case,
inspections.
I would agree with you 100%,
I mean,
absolutely.
I don't think we know that tonight, though, and I think we'd like to make a decision on this tonight.
I think you're gonna change the town code and then we're not gonna be able to change it back. Or it's gonna take a long
Well, Jim,
process
can I-
to change it back.
Can I ask you a question just to clarify? Because is this change only effective for a public
Yes.
Yeah,
like the library?
Public corporation.
So a private corporation, individuals, developers, this wouldn't apply to them?
no.
They'd have to
Okay.
either do reciprocity or get a special
Okay,
permit.
so the reality is, I think, if we were to pass this, it would be applied in this situation with the library, and because a lot of the other levels of government don't come through our system, this thing we don't need to rescind it because it's probably gonna be collecting dust on the shelf. So I don't think it's gonna open the doors to a lot of other people coming in doing a lot of other work.
Well,
That's my thought.
he just said that, it would be a special permit, for an individual corporation.
There are
No, they-
some permits, but that only, under the code, is available to people who are licensed out of municipalities which have reciprocity with us.
Right, so they gotta be a
That was the
licensed
problem
plumber in the
with
town
Bennett
or
Company.
So
or
they
get
would- they would-
reciprocity
and-
through another municipality or government entity that has reciprocity with a town.
And that's the other part of your, the way you worded this was to give Tim Sickles the authority to decide where that should fall under the plumbing board. I mean, we have reciprocity with other municipalities, and we're trying to get more involved. And
And I agree with you, the problem is that there are times, and we've just had a recent incident where we need the plumbing board to possibly meet for a special meeting, and sometimes that's hard to pull off. And we're not looking to try to mix it up with, the area plumbers or anything like that. All we're trying to do is keep, a project, as Councilman Safone said, from running up a tab that the taxpayers are gonna end up paying. That's our only objective here. The item that we're voting on, the new language clearly says for a specific project for a public corporation. I mean, it's written so it's exclusive to a public corporation, not just a company or an individual, and simply to,
is Macy's a public corporation?
No.
No,
No?
no,
Okay.
no.
And just to correct something, the reason for plumbing licensing isn't to restrict the number of plumbers that are allowed to do business in the town.
Oh, I'm not saying that
That would
that's
be
what we're looking to
counter
do.
to what I think the town of Poughkeepsie should be doing and representing. So it's not intended to say, we have enough, we're not gonna let any more people in.
No, this gentleman would have gotten his license approved by everybody at the next board meeting. That was,
Yes,
I
you're
mean,
right.
he's,
Yeah.
Right,
he
and
had
I've-
all the qualifications.
The last,
Yes,
my,
yes.
my statement was I would have preferred to have this person back in November start the process to follow our rules versus coming in
Yeah, I
in
agree.
May and making it an emergency that drops in our lap. And I also thought that, one effort should, if it was back in November, there could have been an effort made to try to get reciprocity with the city of Albany where he's licensed, which would have basically benefited everybody. Because our plumbers that are licensed here in the town would have benefited from that expanded area as well, so.
But he's licensed in Putnam. He's had plenty of
Well,
time.
I think you're talking about.
There's two
this
different
is-
plumbers.
Oh, okay, all right.
yeah,
all right.
that was the Juliet
Okay,
plumber. He
all
was
right.
licensed in Putnam.
That's a difference, that's
Yeah.
been worked out and it's resolved. This
Yeah.
issue, this guy's from the Albany area.
Okay.
And-
And this is, I don't believe that he really needed a license here to do
Well,
that
it's
job.
interesting. We'll definitely look into
You
that
know.
because you're the first one to raise that that issue, and if that's the case, we'll definitely pursue that avenue rather than, and I think Councilman Svallin's right. If the board decides to approve this tonight, we can come back in a month and rescind this. Although it'll be seldom used because it's only for a public corporation, we can easily pull the language that we're,
The other thing is,
consider.
I find that, as a plumber, I'm paying $350 a year for my license, and someone can come in and do a job and pay $200 or $225, whatever you
Well,
had.
the last meeting also, and I think you guys might have seen that the prior version, I had raised that concern, and I believe we did amend it at the last meeting, because my concern was it should at least be an even playing field. So a plumber coming in through this process, whether it's through the plumbing board or through Tim Sickles, the building inspector, would be paying the same fee that a plumber pays to get licensed, and we tied it to the fee, not a number, but what that fee will be, so it will rise with any fee increase to the licensed plumbers, and also the fee for the exam, so that plumber's paying, I think it comes out to $550.
Yeah.
this is equal to the licensing and the testing fee.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Mike. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
My name is Steve Eckelman, Dutchess Plumbing, a member of the Town Plumbing Board also, and one of the Town of Poughkeepsie plumbers. The qualification review is one of the things that I really have a problem with this. Really, I think that should be brought back to the Plumbing Board, not given to the building inspector. This is one of the tasks that's given to us to review all qualifications for any applicants coming into the town, and I don't see a reason to give it to the building inspector. We should be the ones to take a look at this and review this and find out if they're truly qualified.
Okay.
The other concern that I did have that you addressed is the fees, and the $550, that seems like a reasonable fee. But I also think it should be for these public jobs on prevailing rate, because you have a lot of our plumbers, over 100, they would be, I think, competitive with these. But a lot of them don't do the prevailing rate jobs. And like Mike had brought up before, typically they are brought up or inspected by engineers. I think he spoke with Pete Sotero, who's on the plumbing board also, and he reaffirmed that.
Okay.
The other thing that was, again, changed last week, which I'm not sure if you guys had seen the change, is that the second criteria was just the approval by the building inspector, but language was added that the applicant, provided that the applicant is licensed by another municipality in New York State, which has licensing requirements comparable to those of the town of Poughkeepsie. So we did add that requirement into the language that the other municipality has to have the same criteria, so all the same hoops that you have to jump through as far as experience and other paperwork that you have to provide. So there is an effort here to try to make
Then it should be the plumbing inspector's job to take a look at that, because he's more qualified to look at the qualifications than Tim Sickles would be.
I think both are probably qualified,
Okay.
in all honesty.
And the last thing is, this particular job, the library job, has been ongoing.
Yeah.
You have a construction managing group that is supposed to oversee this. They've worked in the town of Poughkeepsie before. They know the rules and regulations,
Yeah.
and they're the delay here. They should have picked the ball up and figured out that these people didn't have a license. They started the job, my understanding, without even a building permit.
Yes, correct. No, you're absolutely right. As someone said on one of those Councilman Cracker's phone, we're trying to clean up something that's been
But their
put in
poor
our-
planning
thrown in our
doesn't
lap.
constitute an emergency or a special meeting
Well,
on
the
our
problem
part.
is, I realize that, but the problem here is if this were Macy's, I don't think we'd even be considering this action.
Right.
The problem is it's a organization, an entity that the taxpayers fund.
And
if
I
there's-
agree with that.
That's the
I
only
agree
reason we're
with that,
looking at it.
but also, this has been ongoing.
know.
We meet once a month, and we're ready to address any of these problems. Along with the problem that we just had with the Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
That should have never been brought to a special meeting. the bidding process for these jobs doesn't come up in a 1-week
Yeah,
time
no, I
frame,
understand you.
and then the building permits all of a sudden appear. It's months and months. So it's just poor planning. The plumbing board is there to address any issues once a month, and I think that's sufficient, really.
Okay, well, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Rick Harris. I'm
Hi, Rick.
also a member of the plumbing board, and I have R.C. Harris Plumbing, licensed plumber. I'm glad to hear that you raised the fee, because it definitely wasn't fair. We're the ones that voted in to hire to the town and brought in over $40,000 in revenue to the town with the new fees. One of the other things that we did on the board was we imposed fees or fines, for when things were done wrong. One of the fines is $1,000 for doing work without a license. The other fine is doing work with a license but without filing a permit, and that's $250. That one I'm aware of myself because I had a permit on the desk in the town of Poughkeepsie, but the permit was not issued yet, so I paid a $250 fine. So if this does go through, I think the fine that should be imposed is the $1,000 fine. And the plumbing board voted on it, and we've enforced it with other plumbers that have done the same, and it wouldn't be fair.
And I just want to comment on, my experience has been the plumbing board has been very professional, very fair and handed. And like Rick said, with the fees and the fines and things, they've looked at what's in the best interest of the town a lot of times. And even though it was going to cost them to some extent, so I would support what you said as far as the fact that the plumbing board does take this seriously. They take the responsibility seriously. And they follow the rules, and when they don't follow the rules, they don't make exceptions for themselves. So I have been impressed with the way they've operated in that regard.
Just a quick question. Who does the investigation to find out whether or not the plumber is currently licensed in the town of Poughkeepsie? Does the building department do that, or does your board do that?
Well, it comes in front of the plumbing board.
But who finds out about it?
It's usually like anything else when we have a zoning violation, it's, a neighbor, a competitor, somebody will see the job going on and make a phone call and.
Did it get reported to you that plumbing work was going on at this particular project
Yes.
before the permit was issued? Or,
Well, there was no.
no
permits
permit was issued?
No permits were issued.
and plumbing work was actually
Right.
being done?
I found out as a member of the plumbing board. I mean, I heard it at our last meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Anybody else? Yes, sir, Mr. Armstrong. Sorry, Doreen, you were just a second late.
He's a commissioner after all.
Don't be saying that. As a taxpayer, I guess, I have a problem with them not doing more to get the local people doing these jobs. Now, I understand the competitive situation that's involved. The way I'm seeing it right now, not knowing anything about the plumbing and the boards and stuff, but not having an inspector, even though this engineer who's hired by the owner, if I remember what's been said, has the permit to do the engineering and make sure everything's right, but he's working for the owner. Where does the town come in with their people to go and inspect it to
Well,
make
it's
sure?
still inspected once the work's done. Plumbing inspector will go in and
Oh, because
inspect
I was
the
under
work.
the way he said it, I was under the
I
impression
think
that.
he's saying to pull the permit, the engineer could do it.
Yeah,
How he said?
No, the
Mike?
engineer can
I
inspect.
thought he said
engineer
the
signs-
engineer was the one that made the decision and the plumbing inspector didn't go and look to see what he's okay.
The engineer signs off on it, and I don't know if we allow these things in the town or what types of projects, but I know there are projects where the engineer does the inspection and then the engineer signs off on it, and basically what you have is the engineer's license is what, what's guaranteeing that was
And
done
even
correctly.
though he's working for the owner, it supersedes this town having their inspectors make sure
Presumably, you
it's
could
being
go out
done
there and
right.
find an engineer that could care less about
Putting his license on the line.
And
with
what
Well, I
no
sign off on
understand
professional
that, but if
livelihood.
somebody didn't complain about what was going on with this project, none of this would have been known or even come up to see what's going on with this nonsense because they didn't follow the rules. And you had a person in there last week that said that he knows about all the places that he's worked, what permits he has to have and everything. And I can't believe that a person that works in an area as big as Albany wouldn't know what the process was or find out about it. I find that, there's just, I don't know. The communication things seems to be a little bit lacking amongst the boards and who does what or who should be looking at what. Maybe that's got to be looked into. But I don't know. It just seems like a lot of people say, oh, well, they're taking care of it. The heck with it. I'm not going to look at it.
Well,
I just think the communications is not
Well,
here.
I don't know if it's not necessarily communication between the boards because it's not an exact science. When someone goes out and does something without the town's permission or authorization or knowledge, the town's not going to know about it like that because, we'd have to be patrolling every neighborhood and every area. So a lot of times it comes in as a complaint from somebody else out there in the community. Sometimes it comes in as our building inspector was out in the area, saw something going on and looked into it, or a town employee was out, the zoning administrator, and it comes into the town that way. But a lot of times it does come in as a complaint from a resident, or a lot of times it's other contractors or companies that do the same type of business that see it happening and report it.
I understand
So
that.
it's impossible for the town to know what everyone's doing all the time and absolutely guarantee compliance.
But when we're talking about a major project, and I consider things like the library a pretty major project, and there's big money involved, and there's a lot of people involved, that this isn't scrutinized right down to the last dollar. Because people not checking on people to make sure, which it seems to be apparent, and you got local people that are saying, where's our shot at it? I don't know what the procedures are or whatever. I'm just thinking that something's got to be looked into here.
They publicly bid this work.
I
And they
hear
had
you,
to,
but-
they had to go through the bidding process.
Okay.
In the paperwork, as I understand it, they had the contractor had to get all the necessary licenses and permits from the local municipality. That didn't happen. So now we have a problem.
After 6 months of the project.
Right,
already
they're into the
being worked out.
project, it's a public corporation, it's public dollars. We can say, thumbs down, you were wrong, we're right, you made a mistake, and send them back to square one, and whatever it costs the taxpayer, it costs them. Or we can say, look, let's try to clean this mess up, keep the project moving forward, and not have the tax dollars spent. It's clear where the mistake was. The mistake wasn't with the town, the mistake wasn't with any boards in the town, the mistake was with the library or the construction manager. I don't know who, but someone messed that up.
And a taxpayer takes the bite.
Well, they will if this is
Somebody
delayed,
else
absolutely.
Someone else should share in it also.
I agree, I
Thank you.
agree. Doreen?
Yeah, I don't know why Chazen Engineering is the engineer for this project, or the Palumbo Group hasn't been fined, because they're, they've worked on projects in the town before, and they should be well aware of what's required. Anyway, I'm against this change, and I'm objecting because I don't think we should be changing town code to accommodate a particular entity. And in this particular case, I mean, you would think that there was a reason for the current law, and you have the plumbing board in place. I also have a concern, in which I voiced last time this was discussed. The current building inspector is excellent, but that may not always be the case, and then you're leaving this to just one person. At least if you have the plumbing board, I think there's, more transparency, there's more people reviewing it. And I really don't think that, that the law should be changed to accommodate the library. And especially too about, local, the use of local plumbers, local construction. Again, I've seen, a lot of different places, Vassar right now. I know somebody brought up about Marist recently too. Picketing because not using local work. But, there's a history here of flouting the town law. And what happened is I was watching the project for months going on. I could clearly see there was no erosion and sediment control. And when I finally brought it to the attention of the town in March, because I realized that it wasn't on any of the inspection reports from November through March, I brought it to the attention of the town, and it was stated that they were only just maybe bringing equipment onto the site, and that they hadn't had the pre-construction meeting yet, maybe they were getting ready. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, this has been going on for like, 6 months now. And then when I sent, and this isn't about the project itself, whether it's a good project and the town needs it or whatever, it's about the fact that, taxpayer dollars were used, the law wasn't followed. When I brought this to the attention also of the library director, I said, the project was off to a bad start because they weren't following the rules and they were using taxpayer dollars. And he said, I would contest that the project is off to a bad start. There's considerable enthusiasm in the community for this new and expanded public service. That's not the issue. The issue is you're supposed to be following the law. You didn't do it. And if it said in the bid that you had to have licensed people, well then, why not hold somebody else responsible, like the contractor or the engineer?
We as a town would be issuing a fine to the library, correct? And then from there, it's up to the library as to whether their agreement with their contractors.
I would think it'd be the other way around.
We're issuing the fine to the.
I know the New York
licensed
State
contractor out of the town.
DEC can fine contractors if when they're responsible for violating the law. I don't know how that
I would
works
think
here.
it'd be the applicant for the project is technically the library.
So if we issue a fine here, or if the town issues a fine in this situation, is it against the library directly, or is it against the plumbing contractor directly who's not licensed in the town?
I'm not sure, but my assumption was it was issued against the owner of the property.
Because I
could be wrong.
I know it's part of the site plan approval and the town's approval process, is that the contractors have to sign agreements, if you want to call them. I don't have all the stuff from where they know the law, they agree to it, they sign for it, and so anyway, again, I object to changing the law. For the library, this isn't about whether or not the project is good. It's about the fact that taxpayer dollars are being used. They didn't follow the proper procedure. From November to now, what kind of plumber would not, or what kind of just contractor in general would if you're awarded a contract, you would wait to now to find out what you had to do? So it's just, just doesn't seem to be well managed. Thank you.
Tom?
I just want to say one thing. We have a lot of employees in the town that make important decisions and have the authority to do that. I don't think the idea of allowing the building inspector to make a decision is a bad idea, and it's a recipe for problems or corruption. I think Tim Sickles is a very good, respectable, intelligent building inspector, would make a good decision. Presumably, whoever eventually replaces him when he decides he doesn't want to work in the town any longer, the town board would be careful to replace that position with someone good also. So I don't have a problem giving our town employees the ability to make some important decisions because that's what they're supposed to do. We try to hire very good people. We have to rely on those people to make the right decisions. So I'm not concerned about the idea that the building inspector would make a decision.
Tom?
Hi, I'm Tom Lawrence. I'm the director of the library. I think the issue that really is the rub right now is the very issue that the gentleman who spoke first raised, and that is that there's a perception that public works jobs don't need to be permitted. That is actually the perception that our construction manager used, and it's a perception that one of your own plumbing board members seems to have. So whether that's the right perception or the wrong perception, and I don't believe that other than the work that's been done for school districts or for the county, which are permitted by higher authority, sorry guys, and ma'am, than the town, the Palumbo Group hasn't had local experience in public works projects in the town of Poughkeepsie. But I think that the notion that we publicly bid the project, the contracts were awarded in early November. This actually didn't just come up. This has been brewing since the middle of March, when the plumbing inspector went to get the permit to to do the work that he needed to do, anticipating there was not going to be a problem. It's my understanding that most other permits are pulled relatively quickly. He anticipated the same here when he was getting ready to do the work and had mobilized. The work that had been done prior to that, as I understand it, was site work, burying lines underneath the ground and such. And he was getting ready to start doing the plumbing work in the building itself. So as far as the timeline is concerned, it's probably not as unnatural as it might appear. It's just that we're at a point right now where he is ready, the project is ready. This has taken about 6 weeks to get to this point.
I have a question. The general contractor, is it the same general contractor that did the job in the city of Poughkeepsie for the expansion? No.
No.
Okay. Did the library need permits with that project in the city of Poughkeepsie?
Well, I know we needed a building permit. I'm not too sure if we needed, because the nature of the project was very different. I wasn't as involved with it at that point because it was a much larger project. I got more involved. I mean, I wasn't involved in the permitting aspect of it. I was more involved in the finished selections and stuff like that.
In this situation, I think a lot of mistakes have been made, and presumptions and or mistakes. And it does bother me because it's not really our fault nor our problem. We are, I think, trying to figure out a solution. But it was just a few weeks ago that there was another issue that came up. And I'm guessing that you've already had this conversation with the general contractor and
there has been a come to Jesus meeting.
Because it's problematic when you want everyone to follow the rules. The library district probably should be out front with that.
Yep.
And when there was something else that came up, you really don't want to, I mean, you probably don't want to be here every Wednesday night.
No.
So like I said, I would just hope that that discussion has already happened.
It has.
And that it's clear
It
that
has.
these things are, these things can't continue to occur because we all should be following the same rules and it should make sense and it should be something that we can look at and understand. And I don't think our code is that complicated to figure out. So, and I don't think the library, you yourself and the trustee of the library are the ones that would normally look at our code. It's the people that you're hiring, and those people should have been a little bit more proactive and a little bit more on the ball.
Thank you.
Thanks,
They should
Tom.
know, and they should understand, Tom, you made a statement about, he was only burying lines prior to his work. That's plumbing work. If he's burying lines or not, this, my
I think
opinion is,
that was in the site contract.
your GC dropped the ball, your plumber dropped the ball, and there may be some confusion, because one gentleman said about, sometimes you don't need.
Engineer also.
Here and can do it, you can see it, but you're doing a project that large, they should have come in and had a meeting with the town somewhere along the line to address this. I mean, one of the only reasons I could see it going forward is the fact that it is a public project, but the fact that you guys and everybody below it have not paid attention at all, the different issues Doreen has looked at, it's basically you went in there and from the looks and sound of things, that we're just gonna do what we want, we're not gonna do erosion control, we're not gonna do this, we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna go about doing our own business if we don't have any law around us at all. And if this contractor has worked in the town before, he should be a lot more persistent about seeing what he's doing, because now I think he's gonna be like right in front of the eyeball there, and everybody's gonna keep an eye on what he's doing, because nobody's happy with the project, and this is just only one issue to begin with. Are we gonna end up with all these issues during this whole project? I mean, I've seen how many projects in the town we've had no issues, whether it's a fire district, Dutchess. You don't get all these calls about erosion control and different things. It's usually small out-of-town companies that are coming in just to throw things up. The plumbing board does a great job keeping an eye on these things. We shouldn't have to be here for 4 meetings and spending this money, and somebody brought the fine thing up. I have no problem with somebody looking for a fine, because between paying Mr. Nelson here and all the department heads here to work on stuff, the plumbing board having meetings, if there's a fine that's coming in, we can get it to go to GC or somebody. To go to you isn't going to do any good, because if it's going to you, it's coming out of everybody's pocket anyway. But if the GC or somebody on that end can pay that fine, they should be fined.
Well, that's for an inspector or
And
somebody at the town
we'll
to
address that,
determine.
because they should pay a fine, because somebody shouldn't be able to come into town and just do what they want and go about doing it, and not just the plumbing, without really coming in for any permits.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. Ann, what are you still doing here?
Mary Ann Axman, 111 Fulton Avenue. Not only am I a town resident, I'm also a town employee, secretary to the plumbing inspector. It's my job to make sure that all of the qualifications for candidates who want to be plumbers in the town are accurate and then presented to the board. In the town of Poughkeepsie, we have very high standards, higher than a lot of the neighboring communities. We require 10 years in the plumbing trade, letter in good standing, and then we have an exam that the plumbers have to take, which is sponsored by an outside organization. It's a 4-hour exam. They're given 6 hours to take it. It costs $200. When they apply to the town, it costs an additional $100. So if you're charging them for everything, it's $350 for a license, it's $200 for the test, and $100 for the application. In addition, I looked into the Albany District plumbers. They require 1 year as a plumber's helper. And at that point, they can sit for a plumbing exam, which costs $15. My guess for that price is that it's an in-house exam. So I can't imagine when you're talking comparable requirements that their plumbers are anywhere near the requirements that our plumbers have. This project was awarded to Palumbo. They've worked in this town before and they know the requirements. Anyone who comes into the building department and meets with the building inspector for a project is told, number one, all plumbing contractors are licensed in the town and all heating contractors are licensed in the town. If you're going to have someone do any of those types of jobs, we have lists that we will present to you and you can pick someone off of that list. What happened was the plumbing work was done without a permit. I got the phone call to please schedule inspection for an underground rough. And I said to the gentleman on the phone, you do not have a permit. And that's how this all came about. You cannot work in the town without a licensed contractor. There's a $1,000 fine. You cannot work in the town without a plumbing permit. That's a $250 fine. Our plumbers are set to very high standards. There's over 100 of them on a list that the public library can choose from. I understand it's costing the taxpayers money. It's my money. But we also have rules and regulations, and to change the code to benefit one project, I don't think is right.
They had to bid this out, they couldn't choose a plumber. This was a competitive bidding process because it's a public corporation, just like we do,
So the
publicly bid.
plumber on the job knew that he needed to get an inspection, but didn't think he needed a permit?
I think there was a
Marianne,
mix-up.
how do we
But that
get
would, somewhere,
the
that
fine
doesn't,
over to
but
the
that doesn't
board?
match up somewhere.
He didn't think.
How do we get the information
Though, 'cause-
on the work being done without a permit and without a license?
We're alerted to the fact that a job has been done. I know now that a
Okay,
job has
so
been
we
done.
know it was done. How do we get it
We take
to
that
our planning
information
board?
to the board, and the board assesses a $1,000 fine against the
plumber.
owner of the property,
The owner of the property? Okay. Not the plumber?
not the plumber. We don't even know who the plumber is.
Okay.
And I think one of the issues, a licensed plumber, if they do work without a permit, their license is at risk. And again, the rationale for licensing plumbing, Ann gave one last week. What I heard from somebody else that sort of made more sense was licensed plumber has to follow rules. If they don't, their license is on the line. So when they do work without a permit, they get a fine, but they could also lose their license to do work in the town. And that, to me, makes a lot more sense than some of the other arguments as to why we license, because you know, if your ability to work here becomes in jeopardy to do a lot of work, you tend to follow rules. And I challenge people to find a licensed plumber in this town, especially the guys that are here tonight, that if you call them up and try to do a job without a permit, they would all tell you no and walk away. And, you know, so again, they are following the rules. And if what Marian's saying, there's a $1,000 fine for what occurred, those are the rules that should apply. My preference would be to be able to tag that to the guy that walked in the town and wasn't following the rules, rather than tag it right to the taxpayers of the library district. But
What's happened before, like this, part of this work has been done. The underground work has been done. It's been all covered up. It can't be inspected. What's happened before on other projects is we've had them dig that all up and expose it, rip it out, and start over.
My conversation with the building inspector and plumbing inspector was that this is going to have to be unearthed so they can see what was done.
And we're not actually asking for that. We're willing to make a little bit of leeway, I believe the board is, as long as they use a licensed plumber in the town. But at that point, the GC, the engineer, the owner of the property, somebody else takes responsibility for that work. If you're not going to uncover it and expose it to an inspection by the town plumbing inspector, somebody else has to take responsibility for that, because God forbid something happens, we haven't seen the work.
Could you list again the costs
It's
associated?
$100 for an application. All that information comes before me, and then I bring it to the board. The board approves it. At that point, it's $200 to sit for the test, which is a 4-hour exam. It's passing with a 70% pass rate. And at that point, you're issued a license for $350. There's also a $25 one-time charge for an ID card. Every plumber and his employee on site must carry an ID card, a picture ID card, so that when the plumbing inspector shows up, he knows you're working for him and you're not covering for somebody else.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So
Mary.
it's $675 total.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing no one, I make a motion to close public hearing number 1.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Let's read the resolution and see where it goes.
Be it enacted, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie pursuant to a public hearing held on the 6th day of June 2012, 7 p.m., Town Hall, Town of Poughkeepsie, 1 Over Rocker Road, Poughkeepsie, New York, does hereby amend the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Code, Chapter 154, Article 4, Chapter 154-26, issuance, denial, and revocation of plumber's license, certificate of insurance, reciprocity, special permits, specifically Section 154-26D, entitled Special Permits, which amendment is as follows, with the words underlined to be added and those words stricken to be deleted. 154-26D, Special Permits. The Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board may, in its discretion, issue a permit to an individual or corporation who is not licensed by the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board for a specific project twice a year at a cost equal to the licensing and testing fee per permit, provided that the applicant is licensed by another municipality that has a comparable test of licensing requirements, and said municipality offers a similar reciprocal program for licenses of the Town of Poughkeepsie. It is within the sole and absolute discretion of the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board to ensure that the criteria of the licensing community or municipality is the same as the Town of Poughkeepsie. 2. Notwithstanding anything in this chapter to the contrary, the building inspector may, in his or her discretion, issue a permit to an individual, partnership, or corporation who is not licensed by the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board for a specific project for a public corporation or for a district or corporation created by the state legislature twice a year at a cost equal to the licensing testing fee per permit, provided the applicant is licensed by another municipality in the state of New York which has licensing requirements comparable to those of the Town of Poughkeepsie. Be it further enacted, Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie determine that this action is a type 2 action and further determine that no further environmental action is required. Be it further enacted, the legal notice of public hearing was posted on May 15, 2014, and published in Poughkeepsie Journal on May 16, 2014. And be it further enacted, that said local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All of item number 2 is underlined, which is new language. Any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, public hearing held on May 21st, 2014.
Yeah, it's today.
Yeah, I said May 15th. You're right.
Okay. When this first came up, my reaction immediately to it was that somebody else's problem doesn't constitute us changing a town law. And I've done some work on that and checked. I like to read things and check. There was a series of things that happened. The first was that the project started construction without the pre-construction meeting. The significant entities involved, the architect, the engineering, and the construction manager, all know those requirements. If there had been a pre-construction meeting before any work started, we'd not be here tonight. I am sure somebody would have said you need permits and licensing. I spoke with the executive director of the library, and I understand the implications of it, and I think that this would be a good thing for the people, particularly in the south end of the town. We're looking at changing a law for a specific thing, and I agree with that. but I think I need to offer an amendment. And the amendment I would make is that that permit, so issued by the building inspector, is temporary and is only good until the next exam and a review by our plumbing board. If either of those events happen and the person hasn't complied with it, then they're not going to do any more work. I don't think we should just simply allow it to happen and have a temporary license go for 2 or 3 years or however long the project is. We have it set in place to protect the people in the town. The plumbing board exists to protect the people in the town. I am sure that the nice people on the library board and at the library, and I've spoken to quite a few in the last few days, are very interested in that. They certainly don't want their building incorrectly built and pipes installed that are not correctly installed. I think just point blank giving it a one-time thing on the building inspector to keep the work going, I can understand. But the plumber, in this particular case, should then be responsible to come before the plumbing board to complete the application and to take the test. Had that happened in November when it should have happened, he could have taken the test in March and we wouldn't be here again. So I would like to make that amendment to this to call it a temporary permit and that it lasts only as long as the next exam and a review by the plumbing board. And if those two things don't happen, then the special permit stops and it's unlicensed work going on with the appropriate penalties. I do think that we should cut the public slack on this. I don't think we should be adding fines up. On the other side of the coin, I don't think we should have work in the town that has not been properly done or properly inspected. I also would like to include an administrative fee. If we're doing something special like this for somebody, in addition to paying all of the fees involved, $675, I think there should be an administrative fee for all the additional work that's going to be done by the people.
But again, so that'll be paid by the library.
Oh, it has to be paid by the plumber. He's the one making the application. And I think if it's a bidded job, it's locked in for price.
Can we do that?
The plumber's going to have to eat that.
When I'm reading through this, here's my concern. Based on what was said about the city of Albany, if we pass this tonight, that plumber still can't do work in the town of Poughkeepsie.
Well,
Because the way this is written, the plumbing board, the person has to be licensed to a municipality with comparable tester licensing. That municipality has to have reciprocity with the town of Poughkeepsie. That plumber won't meet that criteria. The second criteria, the way we amended it, it requires that the plumber is licensed by another municipality that has licensing requirements comparable to those of the town of Poughkeepsie. The city of Albany doesn't have licensing requirements comparable to the town of Poughkeepsie. So the problem in the way it's written right now, we'd still have a situation where nobody could issue a permit. That's my read
I don't
of
think
it.
that's the case, but go ahead, Jim.
My comments are that you can make changes, and everybody knows this, as long as they're not substantive or substantial to this. So my guess is if you wanted to make it temporary, you're probably okay. However, if you're going to change the language in what you have in front of you in D2, then what you're doing is, I think, actually making it a little more difficult for a public corporation than the private corporations that get special permits under D1. You know, so you'd have to think about changing that as well. As far as whether the Albany criteria are comparable, the way this is written is, and we discussed this afternoon, Ms. Krakauer, that it's not written just in terms of the test. It's written in terms of the licensing requirements. So I don't know what the whole package is in Albany.
But and that's what I'm talking about. The licensing requirement, from what it sounds like, the city of Albany requires 1 year of experience. The town requires 10. You can't even stretch that to say it's comparable. Could I just finish? I think the way it's written, the building inspector would not be able to issue a permit for that job.
If you, Jim didn't read it the way you're reading it, if you want to take it straight, if we're saying.
Well, and I'm just pointing it out because, I'm not pointing out.
No, I'm just
pointing out
saying.
Because I think the text needs to.
Well,
amended.
but I asked Jim that specific question at noon, and his reading of licensing requirements wasn't, if we have 10 years, they have to have 10 years. It was that they have a licensing process to go through, they have a testing process, they don't just let,
Right,
say, me come in and start doing plumbing work. I mean, it's,
I think you're pretty capable.
I know, trust me, I'm not.
But I think, but my concern is comparable is 1 year's 10 years.
It's not comparable.
Test from an outside independent company.
Licensing requirement.
In-house test that's potentially subjective. I think the problem is that you can't come to the conclusion that it's comparable. I think if it said something along the lines that with a municipality that has license requirements comparable to the town of Poughkeepsie, or the plumber, I think if you tied it to that specific plumber has to have meet those requirements. So if the city of Albany says 1 year, but that plumber's been plumbing for 10 years or more, if you tied it to that plumber, then I think you'd be able to, this would work.
That would fall.
But tying it to the city of Albany, I don't think they can be considered comparable. And I didn't know that.
We've
No, I
had
know,
this
but I didn't know that until they rattled through what the city of Albany does. But I'm just saying.
Everyone thinks.
I'm suggesting it should be.
We can't, but Jim just said if we change D, it's not happening tonight, so.
If we make a substantive change, we.
So
If you-
if you're adding that it's an amendment to the temporary
I don't know
license, it has
that. I don't know that
to be at least
the municipality or the plumber
take the next test,
would
go
be
before the
substantive,
plumbing board.
'cause you're-
I don't want to exempt
I don't think that's.
the person from complying with the things that keep people safe.
Correct. My point, and I don't mean to be argumentative, to Mr. Krakauer, is that the requirement for licensing requirements is a package. Albany might have a lower number of years. They might have criteria that relate to the size of the jobs that you have to work on, and they might have, Ms. Axman said we have a 4-hour test. I don't know how long.
My suggestion for amendment, which I don't think should bounce this to another meeting, would be that we add language with licensing requirement comparable to the town of Poughkeepsie, or the plumber meets the licensing requirements of the town of Poughkeepsie. Because if the plumber meets all of our licensing requirement, that's.
In other words, you're strictly focused, in other words, the experience aspect.
Well, my concern is if we're comparing town of Poughkeepsie to Albany, our standards and our licensing requirements are not comparable to theirs, based on what people have said tonight. So I don't think the plumbing board or the building inspector even.
So you want to say they have to have, why don't we just say that they have to have at least 10 years' experience then?
What?
That's what we're focused on.
No, I don't know what all the requirements are. I'm saying that either the municipality where he's licensed has comparable requirements, or the plumber meets town of Poughkeepsie requirements.
In other words,
because that
experience. Yeah.
And there's more
Right,
than just a 10 years experience, but that would make it so that whoever's coming in can't be a guy who just started plumbing a year ago, got a license in Albany, and now shows up in the town.
In that case, Stefan, why wouldn't Bill's amendment just solve all that?
That it
Have to
has to
take the
go
next
immediately
test
to the
up there.
board.
Well,
The next
I
test.
think Bill's amendment.
I don't think when is the next test?
It's in June.
I think Bill's amendment helps, but I think we still have a problem in that the language, the way it's in there, doesn't allow.
Hold on, you got it, if you got it, we really closed the public hearing, so I shouldn't have asked you the question, sorry.
No, but I believe it's supposed to be in June unless we go with the new company that has an on-site program.
Jay,
So it'd be open.
My concern is just the way it's written.
I share the concern, but I'm trying to figure out a
All
way.
right, so why don't you make an amendment? Let's see if the board approves the amendment, and then we'll go from there.
So we got Bill's amendment.
Yeah,
Is the
I did
amendment-
too. I did.
Hold on.
The fine, not the fine, the fee.
Got your.
Above and beyond the regular cost, and that has to take the next test and go before our plumbing board. And if the person doesn't do both of those, he has no temporary license, and the work is being done without a licensed plumber. You see what I mean? I want to force an end to it. I don't want to leave it open. And I think
And-
it goes right with what
The-
Mr. Krakauer said.
But I think there's a slight, I mean, the problem becomes if he doesn't, then,
Is amendment number 2 to allow the pumping.
you know, then what?
That wouldn't be our problem, and I'm sure in
Not
this.
a problem now, technically.
I'm sure in this case.
So you're talking
whoever's
about for an
making
hour.
Decisions would make sure it happened.
You want to make that amendment?
I would,
Choices are either, I'm sorry,
go ahead, I was going to just
There-
make my amendment.
things, you can do the temporary, or what you were talking about.
I think I think
to the
even if we do the
experience.
temporary, we still need what I'm talking about because we can't issue a temporary if Albany doesn't have comparable standards to the town of Poughkeepsie. So I would suggest an amendment that at the end of that adds, or the plumber meets the licensing requirements of the town of Poughkeepsie.
But, and I'm not, again, pardon me.
So moved.
What, what I think you're trying to do, and, you know, I'm sure you don't have your plumbing code in front of you.
I do not.
Under the
bring it.
reciprocal license section, which is just
Yeah.
above this, that's where the 10 years and the verification comes from. So my polite suggestion would be, if you want to accomplish that, you'd say, or the plumber meets the experience requirements in 15426C above for a reciprocal license. And then that's where the 10 years comes in, if that's
a
what you
plu-
want to do.
Okay, since I do not have my plumbing code in front of me, and I don't have a committed memory, I should. If a plumber comes into the town and wants reciprocity, is the only thing that he or she has to do is meet the 10-year experience requirement?
No, he has to be licensed out of a municipality which offers us reciprocity.
Yeah, and currently, that's only Putnam County, that's the only one we have reciprocity with.
Are there any other requirements?
Provided the other municipality issues licenses pursuant to the same test and criteria utilized by the town, offers similar provisions of reciprocity, and provided further that the individual applying must have 10 years of certified experience verifiable by Social Security records, which in the judgment of the Plumbing Board is comparable to the requirements of an applicant seeking a town license under the general provisions of this
Yeah,
code.
and if anybody was coming before the town board looking for a special permit that we didn't have well, of course, we have to have according to this, but they would look at that. They wouldn't require that the license requires that they have 10 years of experience. They would look at the man's whole history and made sure they came in
Or woman.
with 10 years of history, at least 10 years.
He's gonna
Okay,
get
I have a plumbing code here.
It's the experience part.
Jim comes prepared to these meetings. So Jim has proposed an amendment.
And obviously, the other thing was to go to the original amendment, which was for the temporary, good until there's been a license.
All right, let's,
Or you could do,
till a test, or he appears
pardon me,
before the
until.
licensing board.
then-
In other words,
So moved.
to get the project to not stop, which in this particular case could cost a lot of money. I would like to see the permit issued. But I don't want to have it issued for the project. In other words, if the project takes 3 years, that's not right. I think if it's made temporary, then he takes the next test and he appears before the plumbing board. The plumbing board is skilled enough to find out whether or not it's comparable.
it's
or
going to easily be able to tell if he passed the test or not.
Right, so if they meet monthly, and the next
You
test
made-
is next month,
Bill,
solve the problem.
you made the amendment. Is there a second to Bill's amendment?
Second.
All right, all those in favor of Bill's amendment?
Aye.
Okay,
You
so
want
that,
to make it,
can I just make sure I've got it?
go ahead.
Issue a temporary permit. Okay. Notwithstanding anything in this chapter to the contrary, the building inspector may, in his or her discretion, issue a temporary permit to an individual partnership corporation who is not licensed by the Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board for a specific project for public corporation or district corporation created by the state legislature twice a year, which permit shall be valid until the offering and grading of the next plumbing exam, plumber's licensing exam.
And that he has to file the application to take the test, so he's going to appear in front of the plumbing board.
Well, this, unless you take out the part about the building inspector, this is, you're going to have to go. Well, yeah, then it's going to be a temporary, and then it's going to be good until there's
Then
an
it follows the normal process.
I have a suggestion.
That's all.
That way, in this case,
As
the
part of the-
library district is not penalized for the mistakes of their contractor and their construction manager and their plumber. As part, the project keeps going, and we're sure that we're getting the right work.
I have a suggestion. What about if we keep section 2, and rather than the building inspector, we have the plumbing board be authorized to make that decision, and add the amendment that allows them to do it for a plumber that's meets the experience requirements in the town of Poughkeepsie.
Well, in that case,
This way, we sort of let's just kick it back to the plumbing board. Their next meeting is June 4th.
So it
correct?
doesn't happen.
yeah, but
If the next regular scheduled meeting is June 4th, I would hope that if we go through the effort to try to get this thing done that is palatable to everybody, the plumbing board would hopefully try to make a meeting sooner to look at this. I guess the other question I have is if we pass all this tonight, it becomes law when it's
when it's filed with the Department of State,
sent up or received.
received.
So we're kind of, we're going to be probably a week out or so, no matter what we're doing here.
It might hit Friday, it probably would get there Monday.
All right, it's
Tuesday.
It's holiday.
Monday's a holiday.
But my suggestion was just let's clean it back up to say we're adding number 2 rather than the building inspector. We could either just say rather than the building inspector or the building inspector or the plumbing board has the authority to do this. And add that the requirements are either the municipality where the plumber's licensed or that plumber meets the town's requirement.
Do we have to re-advertise this?
and actually, it'd be much simpler if we just did in section 2 and took out the reciprocal program in 1. Then it's already set up for the plumbing board to review it.
Just vote on it the way it is.
I think vote on it where we stand. With Bill's amendment in there, we're not gonna get a million of these. We're gonna get the library, maybe a couple fire districts. It's not gonna be a million of these. Vote on it. We
It's gonna
need
be
to
very few.
look it over. We're beating no fences.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. We're
The
beating it.
amendment, do we,
Covers us.
Bill's amendment is the temporary till the issuance and grading of the next exam.
Appearance before the plumbing, he's still gonna have to file a license application, which includes appearing before the plumbing board.
I really hope this
That way,
plumber
the
has
project
10 years
goes on,
experience, 'cause otherwise
doesn't
we're
stop,
going around in circles
Out
for
the
no good
control.
reason.
You force them in front of the plumbing.
and you're forcing it.
What if the plumber doesn't make it?
Well, that's,
That's the
I don't know. That's the whole problem with it.
Okay. So you want that to be until the issuance of
I
the next
think-
exam, it's grading, and the issuance,
Of the library.
want the temp to be good until the plumbing board issues it? Or
Till next time.
I have,
until it's been passed on by the plumbing board?
Passed on is the right word.
We're
They
then
meet monthly, so
kicking
we're
it
talking
down
about
the-
a delay of what?
plumbing board meeting.
In the meantime, the project still goes on. It's a temporary, he can issue the permit tomorrow. I don't see a problem with that.
We'll never see this
Right.
The license
That's what-
permit tomorrow.
Collect us.
I just don't like the idea
The,
of taking people who are very skilled and knowledgeable of that function out of the approval process for people entering the function. Whether it's plumbers or
Covered.
pipe fitters or whatever.
Here's my 2 cents. I don't disagree with the amendment that's been proposed, but I think we're now starting to complicate this to the extent.
very
that-
much so.
That
Complicated.
nothing's gonna get done as a result of this.
I would,
And so I almost think that that's what part of me thinks we kick it back to the plumbing board and let them hopefully issue the permit and give them the authority.
without this, they don't have the authority
Right,
to
that's
issue.
what I'm saying. And I would suggest that paragraph 2, at the very least, say building inspector or the plumbing board, if not just the plumbing board. And also that paragraph 2 allows a plumber who meets the town requirements or their municipality where they're licensed meets the requirements.
Yeah.
Because that I think solves the problem for the most part and allows for this thing to happen and keeps,
At this
I
point,
think keeps everybody on a level playing field.
I don't know what we're approving. I'd make a motion to adjourn this to the first meeting in June. I don't know if anybody knows what the amendment, I don't know what the amendment is.
That's why I say,
What it is.
my concern is that this thing's getting
Become a
getting
night.
more and more and more complicated.
Silly at this
And the
point.
effort to try to resolve something, get the library project moving again, is gonna just sort of spin out there because it's
Yeah,
not.
either we want to try to get this project moving or we don't, right? That's why it's before us. I mean,
And this,
no
this,
denying that.
because paragraph 2
Mistakes
deals
made.
with a public corporation, this will be an extremely limited
Right, well, no,
exception
again.
that will almost, once they build a library in the town of Poughkeepsie, there's not that many other entities that are gonna be building in the
Would it
town of
be?
Poughkeepsie that would be coming through on this exemption. So it may never get used again after this. If it does, it's very infrequent. So like I said, my suggestion would be sort of clean it up. I'd prefer we clean it up. If we leave the building inspector in there, I'd like to add that the plumbing board has the opportunity to do that also
Listen,
in number 2.
Do you want to make that amendment
Right,
tonight?
here-
If you do, make the
Here's-
amendment, let's do it.
Here's my suggested amendment, that paragraph 2 be amended to allow the building inspector or the plumbing board to make the decision regarding a permit, and also adds that the plumber be licensed in a municipality with comparable requirements to the town of Poughkeepsie, or said plumber meets the requirements of the town of Poughkeepsie. So moved.
Second for the amendment?
Okay. Did Bill's
We
have
had
a
Bill's-
second?
I don't.
Bill has
We had
a,
it, I seconded Bill, so we can't do this until we.
Again, I make a motion to adjourn the whole subject to first meeting in June, because this, I think, has become, quite frankly, a mess. I second on that?
Second.
All those in favor?
aye,
Aye.
This up the first meeting in June.
thanks, Todd.
All right, that brings us to our public hearing. I'm sure our controller's hanging in, but let me run through the agenda. We're gonna, I'll take questions very quickly on agenda items, and then we'll try to get this agenda. Number 2 is a presentation for overview of first quarter results by our controller. 3 is to accept resignation of Sarah and Clyde School Crossing Guard. 4 is to authorize street lighting authority order for School Street. Street lighting authority for School Street, I guess. That's Councilman's phone. 5 is to set a public hearing date for a weight limit on Rochdale Road. That's actually coming through Councilman Conti. 6 is to ratify 2014 amendment, extension agreement, execution, counselor and training, preschool sports. 7 is approve bicycle event, get your guts in gear. 8 is a final order, this is for the water plant upgrade. 9 is bond resolution, water plant upgrade. 10 is to accept resignation of Alan Gardner, one of our plumbing board members. 11 is notification, public hearing, Town of Newburgh. 12 is notification that following complaint has been referral to legal. Then we have a couple special consents. SC1 is authorized. Jim, why is that on there twice? Do you know? I didn't notice.
There were 2 of them, I thought.
Which one's that?
Mike, do you have 2 on street lighting authorities?
Just be the one.
No, there's supposed to be one, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I will strike special consent 1. SC is consent for planning board lead agency for Marist College, Beck Place. 3 is consent for planning board to act as lead agency, Marist College, St. Anne's. SC4, appoint planning board intern, no cost to town. SC5 is notification for a public hearing in Town of LaGrange, and SC6 is a resolution concerning a FOIL. So I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for for comments on the town board agenda.
Todd, SC1 should be lease agreement tasers.
Yeah.
That was my
Oh,
mistake.
that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry
I'm
about
sorry. SC1 is a lease agreement for tasers, okay.
Sorry about that,
Thank
my
you.
mistake.
That's okay.
But before we
Anybody?
do this, Mr. Tancredi, your motion was to adjourn the public hearing and the matter to that first meeting,
First meeting in
right?
June, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Is there anybody here to speak to agenda items? See no one, and make a motion to resume the rules?
Closed?
All those, second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we have a presentation for our first quarter results from our controller, Mr. Wadowitz.
I know.
Thank you. Jim Wadowitz, Town Comptroller. Supervisor asked me to come in, effort of transparency, to come in and review the first quarter results of 2014. 2013 is presently in audit. We came in as advertised, last presentation I made. We're hoping our fund balance went up in our three major funds. We're estimating about $500,000 if all goes well. And 2013 was a tough year with the snow and with the Dutchess County. So tonight I'm going to take you through the 2014. Before you, you should have a hard copy. I'll go through it kind of slow. So again, Todd has asked me to update the first quarter results. Todd is always interested in making sure there's no surprises. So we spend a lot of time together talking finances. And all in all, the first quarter 2014 has come in as advertised on budget. Now the first quarter is always interesting because we pay some bills right up front. For example, our software licenses, our workman's comp, we get an annual bill, $240,000, paid in full in the first quarter. Insurance, we get 2 installments a year. We pay the first half, so 50% is already in. What you're looking for is kind of like 25% for the payroll, but I just caution you that not all bills are straight line. And it works the same way as well. Our recreation programs, our highway guys, they start kicking in with the nice weather. So just keep that in the back of your mind as I go through this. Of course, the highway excludes the snow issue. Just a few general statements before we get started on the slides. Our electric costs for the first quarter 2014 were up considerably. This was based on a couple of factors, a 25% variable that we agreed upon, the cold winter we had, and we also got changed to a different sector. We used to be combined with the upstate New York. They moved us to downstate New York. We have taken an action on this. Jim Nelson and Todd are on the committee. We locked in with Hess for the two March and April. And we go, and I know Jim's going to be talking about it in executive session, and we'll be bringing before you, trying to tie this thing down for either a year or, so we have taken a measure. Jim, anything you'd like to add on that, or?
That covers it.
Okay. We have some good news on the New York State retirement. The 2013-14 budget, we had an increase by $600,000. We were informed that the rates for the next budget will be going down a little bit. That hasn't happened. I've been back to the town 7 years. We haven't had a reduction since. So that's good news. So, we'll.
Assuming that holds up, we haven't gotten any confirmation from the state that that's going to be the case. They've insinuated that they expect that to happen, but it's say May, and until we get that bill from the state, we don't know what.
That's true, Todd. It is an estimate at this point. But I'm jumping at it. It's good news. But Todd keeps me, conservative, and I appreciate that. So slide 1 and 2. So the first two slides, and your page 1, this is the general fund appropriations. This is the town-wide fund, goes across goes into the village of Wappingers, up to the bridge. Just a quick word here, we have 2 new department heads in the general fund. The town clerk, Felicia, has done a nice job during her transition. She's on budget, she understands, she works closely with my department. She's had a couple of great hires down there. I mean, I've been down there, the residents, they're very friendly, they work with them, and she's just good to work with. It's a tough transition. She replaced a 20-year veteran, I believe, so Felicia's doing a great job. And the same with the tax receiver. She picked that right up where Mr. Patterson left off. I don't think she's missed a beat, and you'll see some of the information she's on some of these sheets. You'll see how the revenues are up. So now I take you to the slides, if I may. The first, and again, I'm just going to touch on a couple. Again, all the way over to the right, if you see 25% for the departments, they're on the line. Insurance. Ever since we switched over, that 37th, right in the middle of the page, unallocated insurance has a budget of 112 and change. 50% paid, $37,000. The second bill came in. Our insurance will be $75,000 in the general fund, so we have a surplus there. That's good news. Judgment and claims. This is an account Todd spends a lot of time on. We spend a lot of attention. We're hoping to have hit the ceiling here. In 2030, you see the budget of 300,000, middle of the page. 290,000 was spent in 2013. Todd wouldn't allow me to go over it even if I wanted to. We're hoping we've hit the ceiling here. We had one big one already in January. It was 70,000. We paid it the first day.
Those
so
are
we're-
tax certs, basically.
Tax cert, it was for 4 years. So we're at 104,000, but we're hoping we don't come near that 300,000 this year. We hope we hit the ceiling. Jim, you have anything to say on the tax cert? Jim's always helpful on those as well.
No, I don't know that there are any huge ones coming through the pipe.
Hopefully they're winding down, we'll see.
That's what we're hoping. The pool, small, but that's on the next slide. Let me go to the next one.
Go ahead, just continue, Jim.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find it. Is it on that one, Doreen?
It's on the first page.
First
It's on
page
the,
on
it's
the
on the
handout.
printout, but I don't see it on there.
Yeah.
Okay, the pool is, its strategy changed. We were partners with the city of Poughkeepsie to run Spratt Park. We were notified we're no longer partners. So the strategy's changed. And for everyone's information, we're still gonna be having the, swim lessons. They're gonna be at the Jewish Community Center. Tom Meyring's on top of all that. So, and that was a wash anyway. We had, budgeted revenue expenses to be the same. Swim lessons at the Jewish Community Center for anybody listening at home. Now, the drainage, we added $100,000 across the board. Not much of that has been touched yet. I spoke with the superintendent. He gets going with the nice weather. Jay, you and I spoke today a little bit about drainage, so that should be starting up in a couple of. Next is the senior center, Todd. Successful mission there, a budget of 115,000. We spent 16, nothing but positives down there. They're on budget. We added a couple extra dollars this year to make sure that the maintenance is upkept and it's clean. Next is another good story, workman's comp. We cut this budget in half this year. We switched from Perma to Dutchess County. And as you can see, the bill's paid, $55,000 budget. We'll have a $15,000 surplus. We paid the full bill. Dutchess County billed me twice in February and in March. So basically, our general fund is on balance in the appropriation sector. The next slide is our park town. This is their biggest fund of the town. This is outside the village. We start with the police department. Big part of our town. From the police chief on down, they understand how important, and they always hit their budget. I'm confident they will in 2014. The chief is great at using surplus funds to purchase equipment. So we don't put 3 or 4 cars in the budget each year. He'll say, okay, something good will happen. I'll be able to transfer some money. So somehow he does that every year, and he's already working on that in 2014. Gasoline, very important for the town. The budget was for about 90,000 gallons at $3.30. I checked the running rates, we're at about $3.15, so we're running ahead of budget on the cost. And just for your information, the police in the southern part of town purchased from ExxonMobil. We get all the taxes, all the rebates deducted, and we work with the Arlington Fire Department in New Hamburg. So it's kind of a good joint municipality. Mike Safone helped me set that up. And we got a larger rebate because they add all the gallons together. So the more gallons you buy each month, the better rebate you get. We don't talk about that too much, but that's a good story. One of the things Todd monitors is the retiree health insurance in the B fund. It's a major number, $1,045,000 by contract when a policeman retires, so we pay 100% of his medical. We keep an eye on that. That number's up $150,000 from last year's budget to keep up with it. As a policeman retires, his $90,000 salary goes away. A new officer comes in at 55. That's good news, but we have that insurance. We always keep that in the back of our mind. Next up is highway, the third fund that establishes our tax levy. Superintendent, I spoke with him yesterday, informs that they've come out of the winter still standing. Our snow budget is at 71% through the first 3 months of the year. That gives us $175,000 available to get through November and December. And we did receive a $35,000 rebate from New York State because of the winter. So add that to the 175. and they'll have to get us through the winter at about 200,000, November, December. I don't know if anyone's heard any forecasts. All other areas on track. Now I take you to the last slide for appropriations, the water and sewer funds, the final 5 major funds of the town. Ballard runs a tight ship. Everything's on budget. The only issue we have there is we have our joint water plant, which we have with the city of Poughkeepsie, with a major improvement going on. So that's the only real variable. We plan on using some of our surplus from the water fund to pay, not to bond everything. So for example, you'll see on the chart, the $135,000 interfund transfer, that money was out of the water fund, and that's paying for the design costs. That's a quarter's worth of charges. So that's in process, and I believe you have something on tonight per cap. But we'll use as much as we can from the fund balance. The water fund has been... The last on the bottom chart is the sewer fund. Again, just good news here. Since early 2011, we're plus 1.5 million. Todd had me double check the number. So this goes to the transition. We started early in 2011. Franco does a good job with the transmission guys. Now we go to the revenue section. I'll just hit on some key ones here. In the middle of the top, New York State mortgage tax. So again, we dropped 100,000. This is a tough one to call. We're at 249,680, but that's for 4 months. I wanted to put April in there because April was a good month. I don't get very much from Dutchess County. I get a check. So 95,000 in the month of April. We're hoping that's an upswing. We annualize that out. If we divide the 249 by 4 months, it gets us pretty close to the 800,000. So. Small one, but I wanted to mention it. The town clerk is running a little bit low. She mentioned that with the St. Francis, with the transition was going on there, we may have been hurt with a couple of people not using the hospital for certain death certificates, and so. But she's reported that now things are back on an upswing.
Yeah, January was pretty low compared to the last 4 years. So, but it seems to be almost back to normal.
Maybe the death rate was down.
Not that you want to. Yeah,
We don't really want that business picking up.
Continue then.
absolutely not, but it is part of the revenue.
Dawn,
The
Yes.
tax receiver, and here's something I said, the new tax receiver, she gave me a check for $35,000. This is for penalties and interest from March 1st to April 30th. Same time last period I checked back, we got a check for $21,000. So again, I don't know if that's good news or not, but people are paying a little bit later. We're plus 14. Good for the revenue section, but. And the recreation day camps, I'll take you through that one. Just getting started. The director informed me that he's about 60% full for the camps, and he starts some radio advertising coming up. And I know that's pretty successful, and it's a good price along the way. Just keep going, Todd.
Yeah, just wrap up. Whatever you have to say.
General B fund, again, our largest fund, you see our taxes 100% guaranteed, everything's in. Sales tax distribution, I'm not gonna talk too much about that. We're locked into that 1925, they said this quarterly checks. Franchise taxes, 710,000. This is the 3 cable companies. We get a quarterly check from Verizon, Time Warner, and Cablevision. Last year, we exceeded the 710. We kept our budget the same. We're expecting that continues. Rental of real property. I wanted to talk about this for a minute. This consists of 2 basic components. That's the 192,000. McAllister's is still renting a portion of our police courts building. That annual base rent of about $80,000 a year. And we also get additional rent when they use additional space. Don Beer works with McAllister's. He sends me a note. We send him an additional. That's another $12,000. But then an additional thing, we worked on something, Todd, Neil, and I wanted to show you. These are the cell towers. We have 3 cell towers in the town of Poughkeepsie. Cedar Avenue, Barnes Drive, and right to my left out here, Town Hall. And believe it or not, the revenue from the 3 cell towers for Verizon and Sprint and everybody on there, about $145,000 a year. I thought that was interesting when I finished this schedule. and Todd thought it would be a good idea to bring this out.
And the reception is fantastic.
So I'm winding down. Cell towers, about 145,000. 3 towers are present. Now back to the water revenues down on the bottom. We have a rate of $1.50 per unit. A unit is 748 gallons, and our residents pay an annual tax of $36. 2014 tax. So the average family, former Supervisor Joe Davis once worked this up for me, said use 25 units of water for a family in the town of Poughkeepsie. So thank you, Joe, if you're watching. I'll stick with it. So the average family is $186, according to that. The city of Poughkeepsie is $3.45, no tax. The same, 25 units a quarter. Their charge would be $345. And LaGrange, I got a copy of their bill, they're $4.86 per unit for water, and their sewer's higher. I'll get to that one in a second. So again, I know Stefan always looks at the water, and I just want to let you know that it looks like we're getting our residents get good quality water at a reasonable rate. Sewer revenues are broken down. We have 28 active sewer districts in the town. 24 going to Arlington, a major improvement going on there. 3 going to the city plant, the northern part of town, and of which we own 35% of the capacity of that plant, and then Tri-Muni, southern part of the town. The rate here is $1.25 per unit of water. So it's the same 748 gallons that goes through your water. So I want folks at home to know this, Todd. If you're watering your grass, that gets charged to your sewer, even though it's not going into the sewer. So because it's only one measurement, it's based on the water meter. So be careful, this counts towards your sewer. And then an annual tax to the sewer districts based on the size of the district's infrastructure, i.e. manhole covers, length of pipe, etc. So again, for an average family using 100 units in the town, I use the average tax of $175 annually on the tax bill, would be $300. The city of Poughkeepsie is $3. No tax, $300, and LaGrange is $547 per 100 is $547.
Wow.
So again, all in all, the first quarter, Todd, I believe we're on budget. We'll keep a close eye on everything.
Any questions for Jim? Doreen, could you hit that light, please? Any questions from the board?
Nope.
All right, Jim.
Thanks, Jim.
Appreciate your attention to details, and thanks.
Wonderful job once again, Jim.
All right, let's move on to the agenda. Jay, you want to pick us
I read
up
that.
at number 3?
Let me get there.
Or Bill?
I got it. Be it resolved that the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie does hereby accept, with regret, the resignation of Sarah Klein from her position as school crossing guard effective the end of the school year, June 2014. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Resolved, Town Board, Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the supervisor to execute a Central Hudson Gas and Electric Corporation Street Lighting Authority order for the installation of a street light on School Street at pole number 50085P. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Yeah, I'm fine with this one, but I think somewhere in the process, I don't know if we should do some sort of internal audit of these or have Central Hudson work with us, because we tend to just approve these as they come through, but the bill for this gets pretty high that the town is paying. So I think we just maybe want at some point, maybe have engineering or highway or one of the town departments take a look through at these streetlights that we have that we're paying for.
They can
make
give you-
sure that they make sense, that we still have all those. It might make sense to turn some off that aren't really serving a purpose, the benefit of.
We can have our streetlights audited, and the company that'll come in and audit them, if they find, they take their fee out of what they save us. If they don't save us, they don't get paid, so we're looking to bring them in.
But somewhere in that, I think we just got to make sure that, because usually these get approved just as a matter of course.
Well, each council member
Well,
Right.
Not
brings them in, and
Not necessarily, but I could tell you, when we had Russell King here, he went out with you, and if we saw too many lights on the street, we would not approve them.
I thought Mark kind of took over on that. The left.
he did.
Yeah.
Well, I looked at this one particularly, there is a big need.
No,
on
that's what I said, I'm
Bonnet
not,
for lights.
this one I'm fine with, I'm just saying that I think we might want to just double back because it's expensive. And one of the ways that some communities save some money is turning some lights off from time to time. So it may be that some of these that we've turned on or other town boards have turned on over the years might not make sense and might not be serving too much of a purpose.
Yep, okay. Anything else? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Number 5.
Be resolved, the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie is hereby set the 4th day of June 2014 at 7:00 PM at the Town Hall, Town of Poughkeepsie, 1 Over Rock Road, Poughkeepsie, New York, as and for the time, date, and place of a public hearing to consider an amendment to the Town Code, Chapter 195 entitled Vehicle and Traffic, specifically Section 195-46, Schedule 11 entitled Trucks Over Certain Weights Excluded, which amendment would read as follows: add name of street, Rochdale Road, weight limit 5 tons, location entire length, and be it further resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does determine that this action is a type 2 action requiring no environmental review, and be it further resolved that said local law, if adopted, shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State, and so moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Be it resolved, the Town Board of Town Poughkeepsie does hereby ratify the supervisor's execution of the 2014 Amendment and Extension Agreement for the Town of Poughkeepsie Recreation Department, Counselors in Training, and Preschool Sports Program with the County of Dutchess, copies of which are attached. So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Be resolved that the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie has heretofore received an application from Elsie Hallenbach on behalf of Get Your Guts in Gear, the ride for Crohn's and colitis, to be held on the 11th, to hold its 11th annual charity bicycle ride, to be held on June 7th and 8th, 2014, and be it further resolved that a certificate of liability insurance naming the town of Poughkeepsie as an additional insured has been filed with the town clerk of the town of Poughkeepsie. So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
At a regular meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York, held at Town Hall in Poughkeepsie, New York, in said town on the 21st day of May 2014, 7 p.m. prevailing time. Whereas a map, report, and plan, including an estimate of costs, have been duly prepared in such manner and in such detail, and as heretofore been determined by the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York, relating to water improvements to serve a benefited area in said town to be known as a Water Improvement Area 7, the area, whose boundaries are the same as those of existing water improvement areas 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, being the entire area of the said town outside of any villages, and is fully shown upon a map on file in the office of the town clerk, which map is available for inspection by any person or persons interested in same during regular office hours at said office. And whereas said map, plan, and report, including estimate of cost, were prepared by a competent engineer, duly licensed by the state of New York, and been filed in the office of the town clerk of the said town, where same are available during regular office hours for examination by any person or persons interested in subject matter thereof. Whereas the capital improvements proposed in connection with the establishment of Water Improvement Area 7 of the town of Poughkeepsie consistent of the town's share of the cost of disinfectant byproduct compliance improvements at the Poughkeepsie water treatment facilities, including construction of additions to and reconstruction of existing buildings and related facilities and original equipment, machinery, apparatus, appurtenances, as well as other incidental improvements and expenses in connection therewith at a maximum estimated cost of $7,448,455. Whereas said maximum estimated cost shall be authorized to be financed by the issuance by the town of Poughkeepsie of its serial bonds with a maximum maturity not in excess of 40-year period prescribed by local finance law. Whereas said town board duly adopted an order on the 10th day of July 2013, calling a public hearing to be held at Town Hall, Dutchess Turnpike in Poughkeepsie, New York, in said town on the 24th day of July 2013, 7 p.m. prevailing time, to consider the question of a map plan report and the maximum amount proposed to be expended in connection with the establishment of Water Improvement Area 7 in said town and the improvement proposed thereof at a maximum amount of $7,448,455, and to hear all persons interested in the subject thereof concerning the same, and to take such action thereon as is required by law. Whereas said public hearing was duly held at the time and place aforesaid, at which all persons interested were heard. Whereas said town board duly considered all the evidence given at such public hearing, and whereas said town board duly adopted a public interest resolution on July 24, 2013, subject to a permissive referendum, which authorized and approved the establishment of a Water Improvement Area 7 and the construction of a water improvement therein at a maximum estimated cost of $7,448,455, as to which no petition was filed. And whereas said town board did thereafter duly authorize an application to the Office of State Comptroller for approval of said Water Improvement Area 7, which application has been filed. Whereas said town board has received the approval of the State Comptroller of such Water Improvement Area 7 by his order dated May 6, 2014. Whereas upon such approval, the establishment of said Water Improvement Area 7 is effective. Now therefore be it ordered by the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York, as follows. Section 1. It having been found and determined by the Comptroller of the State of New York to be in the public interest to provide for the establishment of a Water Improvement Area 7 in the Town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York, and the improvement proposed thereof at a maximum amount of $7,448,455. And further finding and determined the said cost does not constitute an undue burden upon the property that will bear the cost of said water improvement, the town board hereby memorializes the establishment of Improvement Area 7. Section 2. The town board having been directed in order to cause a certified copy of the public interest resolution to be duly recorded within 10 days after receipt of the aforesaid described approval of the Comptroller of the State of New York in the Office of the Clerk of Dutchess County, New York. To duly cause the reordination of the public interest resolution of this town board dated July 24th, 2013, in the Office of the Clerk of the County of Dutchess, New York, on May 13th, 2024, which, as so recorded, shall be presumptive evidence of the regularity of the proceedings and action taken by the town board in relation to the aforesaid establishment of Water Improvement Area 7. Section 4. This order shall take effect immediately. The question of adoption of foregoing order has been duly put to a vote on roll call, which results as follows.
So we need to do a roll call vote on this one?
Wait a second.
You're going to need a second.
Second. All right. Roll call.
Todd Tancredi.
Aye.
Jay Baisley.
Aye.
Bill Carlos.
Aye.
Mike Safone.
Aye.
Stefan Krakauer.
Nay.
And Sheershin.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion passes 5-1. Bill, unfortunately, unless someone volunteers to take a long resolution, you've got 2 weeks in a row with a long resolution. I don't hear anybody speaking up, so go ahead.
Okay. Resolution 521 of 9. Bond resolution. At a regular meeting of the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York, held at the Town Hall, 1 over Rocker Road in Poughkeepsie, New York, in said town on the 21st day of May, 2014 at 7:00 p.m. prevailing time. The meeting was called to order by Supervisor Tancredi, and upon roll being called, the following are present. Councilman Baisley, Councilman Carlos, Councilman Safone, Councilman Krakauer, and Councilwoman Sheershin.
And Todd Tancredi.
Absent, Councilman Conti. The following resolution was offered by Councilman Carlos, who moved its adoption, seconded by Councilman
So moved.
Baisley. To wit, bond resolution dated May 21st, 2014, a resolution authorizing the issuance of $7,448,455 serial bonds of the Town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York, to pay the cost of certain water improvements to serve Water Improvement Area 7 in the Town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York. Whereas, pursuant to the proceedings heretofore duly had and taken in accordance with the provisions of Article 12C of the town law, and more particularly a resolution dated July 24, 2013, said town board has determined it to be in the public interest to establish a water improvement area 7 at a maximum estimated cost of $7,448,455, which establishment thereof has been approved by the Office of the State Comptroller on May 6, 2014, and whereas the capital project therefore, as herein described, has been determined to be an unlisted action pursuant to the regulations of the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, promulgated pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act, the implementation of which, as proposed, it has been determined that it will not result in a significant environmental effect, and whereas it is now desired to provide funding for such project, now therefore be it resolved by the Town Board of the Town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York, as follows. Section 1. For the specific object or purpose of paying the cost of water improvements for the establishment of a water improvement area 7, consisting of the town's share of the cost of the disinfection byproduct compliance improvements at the Poughkeepsie's water treatment facilities, including construction of additions to and reconstruction of existing buildings and related facilities and original equipment, machinery, apparatus, tuberances, and as well as other incidental improvements and expenses in connection therewith, at a maximum estimated cost of $7,448,455, which specific object or purpose is hereby authorized at said maximum estimated cost. There are hereby authorized to be issued $7,448,455 serial bonds, said town pursuant to the provisions of the local finance law. Section 2. It has been determined that the plan for the financing of the improvements for the establishment of the Water Improvement Area 7 is by the issuance of the $7,448,455 serial bonds of said town, authorized to be issued pursuant to the provisions of this bond resolution. Section 3. It is hereby determined that the period of probable usefulness of the aforesaid specific object or purpose is 40 years. Pursuant to subdivision 1, paragraph A of section 11.00 of the local finance law, it is hereby further determined that the maximum maturity of the serial bonds herein authorized will exceed 5 years. Section 4. Subject to the provisions of the local finance law, the power to authorize the issuance of and sell bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance and sale of the serial bonds herein authorized, including renewals of such notice, is hereby delegated to the supervisor, the chief fiscal officer. Such notes shall be of such terms, form, and contents, and shall be sold in such a manner as prescribed by said supervisor, consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 5. The faith and credit of the said town of Poughkeepsie, Dutchess County, New York, is hereby irrevocably pledged to the payment of the principal of and the interest on such obligations as the same respectively become due and payable. An annual appropriation shall be made in each year sufficient to pay the principal of and the interest on such obligations becoming due and payable in such year. There shall be annually levied upon the taxable real property deemed to be especially benefited thereby in said Water Improvement District Number 7, an amount sufficient therefore, but not to extend, not paid thereby, or taxable real property within said town shall be subject to a levy of an ad valorem tax without limitations as to the rate of the amount of sufficient to pay the principal and interest on such obligations. Section 6. The powers and duties of advertising such bonds for sale, conducting the sale, and awarding the bonds are hereby delegated to the supervisor, who shall advertise such bonds for sale, conduct the sale, and award the bonds in such a manner as he shall deem best for the interest of said town, including but not limited to the power to sell said bonds to the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, provided, however, that in the exercise of these delegated powers he shall fully comply with the provisions of the local finance law and any order or rule of the state comptroller applicable to the sale of municipal bonds. The receipt of the supervisor shall be a full acquaintance to the purchaser of the bonds, who shall not be obligated to see the application of the purchase money. Section 7, all other matters except as provided herein relating to such bonds, including determining whether to issue such bonds authorized herein in one or more series, and all matters related thereto, and the manner of execution of the same, including the consolidation with other issues, and also the ability to issue serial bonds with substantially level or declining annual debt service, and all matters relating thereto, shall be determined by the supervisor, the chief fiscal officer of the town. Such bonds shall contain substantially the recital of the validity clause as provided in section 52.00 of the local finance law, and shall otherwise be in such form and content and contain such recitals in addition to those required by section 51.00 of the local finance law, as the supervisor shall determine consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 8.
You need some water, Bill?
I'm good.
5-minute break, Bill? No.
Seems like you always get.
Section 8. Supervisor is hereby further authorized at his sole discretion to execute a project finance and/or loan agreement and any other agreements with the New York State Department of Health and/or the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation, including amendments thereto and including any instruments or amendments thereto, in the effectuation thereof in order to effect the financing or refinancing of the specific object or purpose described in Section 1 hereof, or a portion thereof by a bond and/or note issue of said town in the event of the sale of the same to the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation. Section 9, the power to issue and sell notes to the New York State Environmental Facilities Corporation pursuant to Section 169.00 of the local finance law is hereby delegated to the supervisor. Such notes shall be of such terms, form, and contents as may be prescribed by said supervisor, consistent with the provisions of the local finance law. Section 10. The intent of this resolution is to give the supervisor sufficient authority to execute those applications, agreements, instruments, or to do any similar acts necessary to effect the issuance of aforesaid serial bonds and/or notes without resorting to further action of this town board. Section 11. The validity of such bonds and bond anticipation notes may be contested only if, 1, such obligations are authorized for an object or purpose for which said town is not authorized to expend money, or 2, the provision of law which should be complied with at the date of the publication of this resolution are not substantially complied with. And an action, suit, or proceeding contesting such validity is commenced within 20 days after the date of such publication. Such obligations are authorized in violation of the provisions of the Constitution. Section 12, the resolution which takes effect immediately shall be published in full in the official newspaper, together with a notice of the town clerk in substantially the form provided in Section 8.00 of the local finance law. The question of the adoption of the foregoing resolution was duly put to a vote on roll call, which the results as follows. Councilman,
Need a second.
only a second.
Second.
Yeah.
All right, roll call, Felicia?
Todd Tancredi,
Aye.
Jay Baisley,
Aye.
William Carlos,
Aye.
Mike Safone,
Aye.
Stefan Krakauer,
Nay.
Ann Sheershin.
Aye.
I thought that Jay actually seconded that before he read it, but
Yeah, he did second
okay,
it.
just check.
The resolution was thereupon declared duly adopted. Moved? I so move.
And passed 5-1. And both of these issues have to do with the mandated water plant upgrade, so we can meet the new standards that are coming down, issued by the feds. All right, good job, Bill.
Phew.
All right. Be
Mike,
resolved-
you get a long one.
Yeah, be resolved, Town Board, Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby accept with regret the resignation of Alan D. Gardner from Town of Poughkeepsie Plumbing Board, effective as April 8th, 2014. So moved.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
The next one is just a notice of public hearing for the town of Newburgh on a proposed local law. And 12 is a complaint that was referred to legal. And do we have special consents?
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
Here we go. All right, I got it. Be it resolved, the town board of the town of Poughkeepsie is hereby grants special consent to the following items to wit. 1, authorize supervisor signed lease agreement tasers. 2, consent planning board lead agency Marist College Beck Place. 3, consent planning board lead agency Marist College St. Anne's. 4, appoint planning board interim Alexander Dietrich. 5, intern Alexander Dietrich. 5, notifications town of LaGrange public hearings. 1, fees, fines, and zoning. 2, local law. 3, amendment designation for 26 Myers Corners Road. 6, FOIL resolution will possibly be presented for special consent. And be it further resolved that upon the objection of any member of the town board, an item may be removed from the list and voted on separately. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Be it resolved, the town board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the supervisor to execute a lease with Taser International, Inc., a copy of which is attached along with Chief Thomas Morrow's memorandum requesting the same for the lease of 20 new tasers, and be further resolved that the town board of the Town of Poughkeepsie finds that this lease agreement will be less expensive than purchase contract, and that the solicitation of alternate proposals is not required for this form of lease agreement, and be further resolved, the town board finds that this is a type 2 action requiring no environmental review. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Be resolved that the town board of Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby consent to the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board acting as secret lead agency for the project known as Marist College Park Improvements, Beck Place, 3399 North Road, Poughkeepsie, New York, grid number 6162-05-005805 and 007795 and 002778 plus 6162-02-999762. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to table this to the first meeting in June. I met with Marist and Mr. Wilson on this project, and I think before we could actually send this to the planning board for review, I would like to have an opportunity to meet with the owners of the plaza down there and get some more data before we send this out.
Second.
I'm good with that.
Okay, we have a motion and second to adjourn it to the first meeting in June. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Be it resolved, the town board of Town of Poughkeepsie is hereby consent to the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board acting as secret lead agency for the project known as Marist College Parking Improvements, St. Anne's, 3399 North Road, Poughkeepsie, New York, grid number 6062-02-891913 and 893955 and 917955 and 873997. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Be it resolved that the town board of the Town of Poughkeepsie does hereby authorize the appointment of Alexander K. Dietrich as an intern for the planning department starting May 27, 2014 through June 26, 2014, at no cost to the town. So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
Oh, is she here for a special reason, being it's only a month?
No, it's just the way the schedule worked out, I guess. It's, it's when he can make it and.
All right.
All right, we have a motion second. Did we approve that?
Nudge.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0, just in case. 5 is notification of a Town of LaGrange public hearing. 5, 1, 2, 3 are all Town of Poughkeepsie public hearing. And then, Jim, how do you want to handle 6? Do we have a 6?
Yeah, we do. I have a resolution for you. I didn't contribute it. I want to explain or or discuss with you what the rules are, and then we could bring the resolution to the floor.
So you want to go into special consent?
Well, it would be
Or,
a special
sorry,
item that would be
do we
then
wanna go into-
after executive session.
Oh, after executive, I see what you're saying. Okay, all right. So, Jay,
We have to go to executive session?
make a motion. Do you have anything?
You got the whole executive session.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
You want to take
Rachel?
comments before we go in, or?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, good thinking. Make a motion to suspend the rules for public comment on town issues.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone who'd like to address the board? Doreen?
If I could just make a comment before, I was in the north end of town today, and there was a situation that was developing, and our police department was there, and I was able to witness firsthand the work of our police department. And I just want to say that we have very, very professional police officers. Our chief was actually at the scene as well. They handled the situation very well, very smoothly, and it just goes to show all the training and equipment and the leadership that we have in our department does pay off, because things work well out there in the community. So
So they didn't tase you?
no, I did not get tased.
Doreen?
Speaking of which, could you just tell me how much that was, the lease agreement for the tasers?
3,001.
There's a savings of $6,000.
3,000.
Which is based on leasing rather than buying and not having to keep the things up. The total cost.
35,000, 270, chief, does that sound right? Looks like it.
3,000.
300.
No, it's just 35. Yeah,
3,700.
you guys read?
I don't see 35,000.
Chief, you want to elaborate?
No, right here. page
Purchase
2.
price would be approximately $34,000.
Yeah.
The lease price will save us $6,500 over the 5-year lease, so it's $3,700 a year for 20 tasers. And because of this proposal that they're first putting out, we'll get an additional taser free for the life of the
So the
contract.
total cost through the lease is about 24 and change.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you, Chief. And then
Thanks, chief.
the other question was about, Councilman Sifon, did you say for the Beck Place, that was for the Maris
Yes.
Plaza shopping?
No.
No.
What-
I'm sorry.
I met with Marist and I met with Neil Wilson last week. Marist needs to do some improvements, wants to do some improvements to Beck Place. However, their improvements are going to have a direct effect on the plaza. So I want to talk to the plaza first, see if we can move Beck Place up a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Because
And then-
it's just a little tight over there, so.
Yeah, it is. And then the last question would be about SC6 foil. Will you be saying what that is when you come out of executive session, if you can't elaborate on it now?
Yes.
Is when you, so I'll wait then, thank
Maybe.
you.
Maybe.
Anybody else? See no one, make a motion to resume the rules.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Jay, now.
Be it resolved, the Town Board of Town of Poughkeepsie is hereby adjourned to executive session to consider the following matters to wit. 1, confidential communication between the attorney and his client, the town board based on attorney-client privilege. And 2, information relating to the current and future investigation of the prosecution of a criminal offense which would imperil effective law enforcement if disclosed. And be it further resolved, there will be no action, appropriate money, so moved.
Second. A second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Town board adjourns to executive session at 8:55
anybody
PM. If any
cares,
students need
come on up.
signatures,
Come on up.
come on up.